Welcome to the Labrador podcast from Tales of Success Labrador Training. I've got a guest joining me today to talk about her experience of early puppyhood. She will give us some of her first-hand experiences and insights into caring for and training for a new Labrador puppy. Hi everyone, I'm Vicky Sharp, your host for the Tales of Success podcast. For those of you that are tuning in for the very first time and don't yet know me, I'm a dog trainer with a difference, and that's because I specialise in training Labradors to help them become incredible family pets. We're based close to the Wiltshire and Gloucestershire borders in the UK. You can train with me in person, or if you're further afield, join us for live, interactive online training. If you want to find out more about those, you can find us at talesofsuccess.com. My guest for today's episode is Millie. Millie and her puppy have recently graduated after joining me for training at our online puppy school. Millie, thank you for joining me on this episode. People will naturally get to know a bit about you during our chat, but let's start off with a little introduction to your puppy. So tell everyone all about that little bundle of fluff that you've got.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vicky, for having us. So Bonnie is I think she's 20 weeks old this week. And she is my yellow working Labrador. She is absolutely amazing. I call her my leggy blonde and my golden girl. She's just full of fun, but she's like one of the best things that happened to me, I'd say.
Good. So 5 months old.
Yeah.
That's kind of that tough, difficult part of a dog's life between the lovely puppy phase and the terrible teenage phase. So are you happy that she's kind of still in puppy phase, or have we started to see that she's going to adolescence yet?
I would say I'm holding on to the puppy phase, but I can see little glimmers of her sort of getting a little bit more confident and wanting to go a little bit further and sort of almost not needing me a little bit. And I'm a bit like, oh, what's happening now?
Yeah, so I just want my fluffy puppy back. That's probably what you're thinking. Have you had Bonnie since she was 8 weeks old, brand new little puppy?
We actually picked her up when she was 9 weeks old, just purely because my partner's a police officer, so it was kind of worked with his shifts to pick him up, and he had a few days off. So yeah, 9 weeks, picked up my little girl, my baby.
And what was the process of finding her? Did you kind of scope out a particular breeder? Did she just happen to pop up at the right time?
I actually found a breeder before and got put on a waiting list, and the puppies hadn't actually been born yet. So I was sort of eagerly really waiting for the call to say they'd been born. And then I got the call, and unfortunately she'd had less puppies than what they were expecting. So I missed out on that sort of litter. And then I was kind of a little bit like, oh, is it the right time? Like maybe this is a little bit of a sign, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I'd already brought a little toy and stuff. So I was like, I just think I need one. And I looked online and I found a breeder, and I wasn't even really sure, but I sort of got in contact, asked him if he wanted to ask me any questions, and just got such a great feeling for him. So I arranged to go and see him. It was actually between Christmas and New Year, and I just went up, and it was 3.5 hours away in Wrexham. And I went up and visited them, and I just fell in love with Bonnie straight away.
Good. It's definitely worth traveling to a decent breeder when you find them. And I've obviously seen Bonnie during our trainer sessions, but for those people that are listening to this, we're going to give you details later of how you can see some pictures of Bonnie, because she's absolutely adorable. She's a beautiful light colour. Is she from working lines? Just tell people kind of whether you looked into that. Did you know whether she was working or show line when you got her?
So she is working line. Both her parents are actually working dogs, and the actual breeder runs a shoot and stuff. So they were quite actively working. I've only had experience before by the show line dog, so I kind of had a bit of a connection to them. I love the chunkiness, whereas my partner actually preferred the show line. So it was kind of a little bit of a compromise. And then when I was looking for the breeder, I actually didn't really mind. I was kind of like, right, let's just find someone I get a really good feel from.
Yeah, that's a wise thing to do, definitely. So working line Labrador, but actually she's just kept as a family pet. She's not intended for any working purposes, is she? She's just going to be like this lovely family pet Labrador that goes places with you and just enjoys life. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly that. I have sort of thought about maybe doing some of the sort of scent work with her, just because I think it's quite nice to tap into that working line a little bit. But I haven't sort of done much research, so it's something that I'm sort of quite excited to explore as she gets a bit older.
Yeah, it would definitely be a good thing to do. I love scent detection just to tap into that natural desire that most Labradors have of using their nose and working. So maybe we'll see you on one of our scent detection programs in the not too distant future. Um, so, how long have you owned Labradors? Is Bonnie your first and only lab? You've just kind of suggested there's previous experience with Labradors. So tell me a bit about that connection with them from when you were younger.
So like my mum's side family have always had Labradors. I think my granddad might there's probably 6 or 7, I'm not fully sure, but he always talks about them and there's pictures all over. So I kind of grew up with Labradors, and then my family dog JD we got 9 years ago when I was 17. So it was kind of like wasn't really my responsibility, but it was like taking her for walks and doing the whole teaching her to paw and stuff. And she was just like my best mate. When I first left home, I literally would cry because I missed JD so much. So I've always had that soft spot for Labradors. I'd always call myself a Labrador girl.
Good, good. We've got you as another crazy Labrador lady, which is good. Um, where would you say Bonnie and JD? Let's talk about them both. So, where are they at their happiest? What do they do? What is their kind of favorite thing or favorite place to be?
I'd say Bonnie is happiest when she's eating, but also when we're working or doing some kind of training. She's sort of when she's giving me the eye contact and connecting with me, she seems really excited and engaged. That's when I can see her being really happy. And JD, she is definitely the happiest when she's pottering around the allotment with my dad. It honestly, since like it's been colder and wetter and she hasn't been going around, every time the door opens, I sort of see her going to like walk round to the allotment, and she just loves it.
Oh. So when you were kind of growing up around JD, what sort of age would you have been when she was going through that puppy phase? Do you remember that?
So so I was 17 and my little sister was probably 10, I think.
Mm.
And JD was like mental. I just remember her being crazy. My little sister actually called her the rat dog because she was just so nippy. And I've got a video on my phone of me just videoing her nicely and her just jumping up to the camera and biting it. And the house was just absolutely crazy, but it was amazing. I wouldn't have changed anything. I would say that kind of now that I'm older with Bonnie is like I kind of realize when Bonnie's getting a little bit like that and I know how to deal with it more. Whereas when we were younger, we were just like, oh, she's got us, she's got us. Like it was just nuts.
So would you say then the relationship you had with JD when you were that age, was that more of kind of, I don't know, I suppose playmate type thing? Because I guess your parents or your carers probably did the walking, the feeding, the training, all the serious stuff.
Absolutely. We were just that like JD was just our another sibling really. We were just having fun, and mum and dad did all the serious stuff, and they did do a great job because JD was crate trained, and like there was definitely rules that we had to like listen to with JD, like she wasn't allowed on the sofa, and we weren't allowed to feed her human food because labs would just eat anything, wouldn't they? And I think they were worried we'd feed her something she wasn't allowed. But so they definitely worked hard with her, but I just wasn't aware of it. I just had no idea that that's what they were doing.
I think it's quite surprising for a lot of people how involved it is when you've got full responsibility for this bitey little lovely puppy that needs to learn everything. Do you think your limited experience with training and caring for JD helped you decide how to cope with Bonnie? Or did you go into it feeling like actually, oh, it's just going to be a load of fun like it was with JD back then?
I think I definitely realized it was my responsibility, and I did look into it a lot more, and I sort of did like the little research on the forums, and I'd always take those things with a little bit of a pinch of salt. But it was kind of like the things like overtired, overstimulated puppy is a nippy puppy. So we've got a room for Bonnie in our house. We haven't got, it's like we've got like a little cupboard that I've sort of emptied out with a stair gate, and we've got a 2.5-year-old nephew. So when he'd come round, he absolutely loves her to bits, which is amazing. But if it got too much, then Bonnie's got her safe space where she can just go and relax, and I can separate them. So it's not like worrying about a 2-year-old getting nipped fingers or something. It's actually a controlled madness.
Yeah, and you'll never get rid of puppy madness, and we never want to get rid of puppy madness because that's part of
No.
the joy of having them. But yeah, managing it, controlling it, and keeping a lid on the madness at some point is useful. And you say about Bonnie has her own room. It's like a little dog hotel. It's lovely. It's under your stairs, nice spacious bed, and it looks proper plush. It's nice. Um, she's obviously very happy there. So talking about happiness, what is the best thing about having Bonnie in your life? I mean, just when we speak about her, you smile. So I know that she's a big part of your
Oh,
life. What is the best bit?
she I think she's just come to me at the perfect time. So I work from home all the time. I work in like a salesy job on the computer. So it's kind of, I don't really see my workmates or teammates a lot. And then James is a policeman as well. So just having my little mate around in the company, and getting up in the morning and coming down the stairs and she's excited to see me, like it it's just the best feeling in the world. It's almost like having that responsibility has just given me another like thing to wake up for in the morning. Um, I just love her to bits. Absolutely love her to bits.
Yeah, so you should. I'm sure she feels the same way about you. So you probably get those kind of waggy tails and wet nose kisses most mornings, which is a delight to come down to. It's nice when someone's happy to see you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about training. So you've done a good bit of training from previous experience. You've trained with us at puppy school. So what does your weekly or daily training routine look like for you and Bonnie? What sort of stuff do you get up to?
Yeah, so I feed Bonnie just on dry kibble. So I would say that at least one of her meals a day, I put in the training pouch and I'm walking around doing some, whether it be a bit of a heel or practicing some recall in the house or settling, like all those different things we learned in puppy school. I would say I do it at least once a day. We've also recently been practicing just having her in the boot of the car on the drive, and not like her not jumping out or coming to jump at me, because we drive quite a lot of places. So it's quite an important thing for me to train. And also I would take like a handful out when we go for walks and just practice that loose lead walking. So like I get a lot of compliments about how good Bonnie is. And I know that it's this like wonderful puppy stage. So I'm sort of waiting for that next step. But I have put in a lot of work, and it is an everyday, almost every moment, every interaction, there is consistency and there is some form of training.
Yeah, consistency, that's a word you've chosen to use. And it's a word that crops up with a lot of people that we speak to when we ask that same question. Consistency is a massive part of training a dog because if you train them to do something and you do it maybe once a day for a week, but then you stop for 2 weeks, your dog's going to kind of forget and it's going to lose the edge on what it has. And that consistent, almost daily approach for the important stuff is so, so key to create good habits. But also, what we want to make sure we do during the training phase is prevent our dogs creating bad habits for themselves because Labradors are amazing. They will learn anything we ask them to do. And if we don't ask them to do it, they're going to find their own stuff to do. And usually that's the kind of undesirable stuff. So, with that consistency and constant chipping away at it, you will get to where you need to be. Sometimes it takes a couple of weeks, sometimes a couple of months, sometimes a couple of years. It depends on the dog, the skill, and the behavior that you're looking at. What would you say your top 5 skills are that you want to focus on? So not necessarily what you're really good at, but what are kind of those 5 things that are most important to you?
Um, 100% recall, like that's super important. So she have that freedom. We've also been doing like wait and settle so that we can take her to the pub lunch or whatever, and she can be like a good companion. What I mentioned before, the not jumping straight out of the car, and also that loose lead, just because I want to enjoy the walk. I don't want to be pulled down the road.
A dog walk is a dog walk. Actually, the walk is for the dog, but you have to enjoy going on that walk with her. So lots of people contact us when the dog's 2 years old and say, "Oh, crikey, I didn't do any training. How do I stop my dog pulling?" And they've actually let their dog pull for 2 years in the first place, which is the first hurdle that we need to overcome. So you've kind of got this routine of what you're doing already, and you've got to keep going and keep going and keep going until that just becomes the normal thing for Bonnie. And you definitely will get there. Um, because you've put a lot of effort into training, you're seeing the benefits already. But do you think training was an essential part of that first few weeks and months? And could you imagine living with Bonnie now if you hadn't have done any training with her?
It's one of the best things I've invested in, like 100%. And it's I think it's actually allowed us to create such a better bond. And when I'm out and about and like we do different practicing and stuff, and I can see her like just working with me, and it's such a nice feeling. And I I can't imagine the stress it would be if I didn't have that little bit of control and that good relationship with her, and having to just battle with her every day. And I 100% training has been the best thing that I've focused on with her.
Good, good. You'll see all the rewards, and it'll carry on and it'll carry on, and training will be continuous. Don't ever think we don't need to train, because it's something that Bonnie clearly enjoys, and finding new things to keep doing with her will keep that relationship strong, and you're both going to enjoy that. With the training that you've done, would you say you've kind of signed up, I suppose, to a particular type or style of training? So there's many different methods out there. So just a couple of examples. There's purely reward based, there's using food, there's toys, there's punishment, there's balanced methods. There's all sorts of different things that people label their training as. Do you kind of sign up to one of those?
You might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we just do the like reward based sort of thing. So I, with any sort of training, I kind of base it with what I learned with you, which was say her name, say the command, mark it when she does it, and then reward her. And I think is that reward.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So when we train a puppy, when we're looking at kind of brand new skills, that's exactly the way to do it. It's about clear communication with them, acknowledging them, telling them what to do, how to do it, and really kind of guiding them through it and making sure they feel that it's a beneficial thing to be doing. So yeah, pretty much everything we did was kind of positive reinforcement during that puppy stage. Um, and she likes food as well. That's really helpful when you're training a Labrador puppy, right? She probably has tucked away a good amount of food during your little training sessions.
She loves it too much, I would say.
Do you feel that she has coped well with that style of training? Do you think she's understood what she's meant to be doing, and she feels that it's worth doing?
Yes, I do think she does. There's like the couple of things that we struggle with a little bit is like the setter training, because I think she's it's almost like she's constantly in training mode. Like she hasn't got the hang of just yet actually just chilling out while she's constantly waiting for me to say, yeah, good job, or yes.
Mm,
So 100% she's working well of it, but it's just sort of like in the different situations, how can we work around it as well? Which is
yeah.
just part of it, I guess, part of training a puppy.
Yeah, and situational training as well, because in the context of how we teach a dog, they might be really good at doing that particular skill in your garden, but if you ask them to do the same skill in a field, you might get a totally different response. So we should never think that our dog has just mastered a skill because they can do it in your living room or your
Mhm.
garden. It's about making sure they can still perform that skill to the same level around distractions and over greater distances and different durations. So that's kind of the thing to be chipping away at. Can we do all this good stuff in different places as well? And you used the word sort of challenges. The settle was a bit of a challenge. The overall picture of owning a Labrador, do you think it has been different from how you maybe perceived it might be?
I actually think it's better than what I was expecting. I think I was expecting it to be like a lot more hard work, and I'm not saying it isn't hard work. I think I'm saying that I think I was going to find it more hard work, but I think just building that bond and sort of enjoying the moment and know why I'm doing it and having those goals has just made me enjoy it so much. So, and just having her around, she just makes it worth it. It's like I want to do good by her and I want her to be the best dog she can be. And it's definitely been, I mean, I could just be really lucky and just have a perfect puppy, but it's been a lot better than what I was expecting. I was expecting to be very emotional and find it really, really hard, but
Mm.
I've actually really, really enjoyed it.
I do really hope that continues. There's no reason why it shouldn't. You've got a really nice routine. So don't kind of just have in the back of your mind, you might have a slip up occasionally, but take the credit for where you're at because it's not a fluke. You're not here by chance. You have got a good puppy, but you're doing the right stuff with that. What would you say the biggest challenge is that you've faced with Bonnie, and how have you tackled it? What have you done to try and overcome those challenges?
I think the thing I found hardest in the first, and I mean, it wasn't for a long period, was definitely the sort of getting her used to her room. At night, it was, she got hold of it really quickly. But I think it was the whole, I made sure she had been out, she'd been to the toilet, she had water, wasn't hungry. But this whole FOMO when you put them in their crate and they're crying and moaning and barking at you just to let them out, and sort of working out the balance of they've just got to get used to it, but also, am I being kind? I found that really hard. So it was a lot of kind of little but often making sure it was really fun, thinking of different ways to sort of get her happy in it. And I do have an office upstairs, but I work down on the dining room table, which is right in front of her crate. So she could see me, she could smell me, I was there. And that first bit was just hard because I felt mean, but actually it was, I wasn't being mean. She was okay. She just wanted to be out with me.
Yeah. And it's a really, really tough time for a puppy because when they get brought to this new loving home at 8, 9 weeks old, they also get taken away from everything that they know. So they get taken away from their mum, their brothers, their sisters, the home they're used to. It's like being in an alien world when they come to this new house. They're
Mm.
not quite sure yet whether it's a safe place, whether they're loved, whether they need to be scared. So there's always going to be a bit of anxiety there, but you kind of said FOMO, so fear of missing out, and that's what it develops into relatively quickly because suddenly Bonnie was going, great, I've got this great human. She looks after me, she feeds me, she loves me. But why has she gone upstairs without me? And she was probably just desperate for you to come back and carry on that fun and enjoyment. And it can be frustrating. Um, but would you say she's kind of over that?
I definitely, like, she's settled in now to it so well. And I think one of the, like, the best things we did was just making it not a big deal. So when I put her in, I didn't even say anything to her. I'd give, at night time, I'd give her a bedtime biscuit and sort of say goodnight, but it wouldn't be like, oh, bye, baby, I'll miss you so much, goodbye. Like, it was none of that. It was very sort of, come on then, let's go. Shut the door. I walk away. And then when I came back, even when I said hello to her, it was, I'd take my shoes off, I'd get my coat off, I'd do whatever I needed to do, and then I just open the crate and it would be chilled. And I think that has really helped because it's not like every time mum opens the door, it's the best thing in the world. It's just another thing. It's
Yeah.
just really chilled.
It's kind of like making it a non-event, nothing to
Yeah.
be worried about, nothing to be excited about. On the issue of kind of settling and chilling out and FOMO and stuff, talk us through the nighttime routine that you had in the first couple of weeks, because for some people they find it really useful just to put the dog in the crate, let them cry it out and go to bed. Others will sleep on the sofa, others will have the crate in the bedroom. There's no real right or wrong because it will work different for different people. But what was your experience? And based on your individual situation, what would you recommend to other people?
Yeah. So we actually slept downstairs for the first sort of week, just under a week. It's weird, when we finished sleeping downstairs, I actually felt a little bit upset. I was like, oh, he's getting bigger now. But yeah, so we slept downstairs in the living room, and I picked up her water from like sort of 7 o'clock in the evening. And then in the evening, she was sort of playing a little bit. She was quite sleepy. She slept a lot. And then I would take her out to the toilet probably about 11:30ish, so quite late, and then I would just put her into her bed with a little bedtime biscuit, and I would just sit with my back to the baby gate sort of door, and I would just sit with her. And at first I had my hand just in the sort of gate so she could kind of smell me, she touched me sort of, but she would cry a little bit, and then I just sit there and I'd almost like shush her like a baby, like I'd be like shh 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 shh, shh. I also had like brown noise playing. So I think that can be quite relaxing. Like even when I can't sleep, I put that on sometimes. And I got her one of those cuddly toys which have got a heartbeat on. So she had like a few different things just to try and chill her out a little bit. But then as soon as she was sort of quiet for like a couple of minutes, I would just sort of sneak off and get into the sofa or whatever. And then I set an alarm actually to wake her up to go to the toilet at different intervals, but she beat me, so she cried, and I actually didn't hang around. I just instantly got up, picked her up, but didn't sort of no fuss or nothing. Took her outside. Um, I would say a cue word to get her to go for a wee. I'd always say, "Be quick, Bonnie." And then as soon as she's did a wee, I'd be like, "Yes," and sort of say, "Yes, good girl," a lot. So she did actually go to the toilet straight away, which I was like, wow, this is actually happening. Picked her up, put her back into her bed, and just sit by the gate again until she settled. And then I set an alarm again because I was like, right, I'll give her a couple of hours and see if she needs out again, and then I can just sort of wake her up. But again, she kind of beat me to it. So I let her out. But that was like 5 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, actually, we've put her to bed at 11:30. She woke once at like 1:30, and then she slept again till 5. And I was like, wow, like this is okay. And again, I took her out and she went to the toilet straight away. And then I put her back in just for a couple of minutes. And I think I got up at like 6 and then got up, took her out, and that was that. And the second night, she only woke once in the night because I was kind of like, she's telling me she needs the toilet. So let's just go with it. Like I was quite sort of open minded to it. And again, she did sort of 11:30. Then she woke up at 2 in the morning, and then she woke again at 5:30. And we just went like that. And then by night 4, she was going from 11:30 until 5:30 in the morning.
And is that when you managed to dive off back to bed rather than being on the sofa?
Yeah. We went upstairs and I had a camera and all these alerts on. So I was like, I can hear as soon as she needs me, I will be there. But every time for me, it was just, I just wanted to make her feel, and I don't know if they do feel it, but I just wanted her to know that anything she needed, I was going to be there for her. Um, and yeah, that
And
was that.
that is what I do. I know we spoke about this before you even brought
Mm,
Bonnie home. And when I have a new puppy, I always spend the first 10 days or so on the sofa next to the dog's pen or crate. Not because I'm going to be there for their every whim to go, right, yeah, let's have a cuddle, but just being present, being that consistent thing, the only consistent thing in their life, just so they don't feel really alone in this big old scary brand new house, helps the dog bond with you immensely. And yeah, they just kind of feel like you're there, you've got their back, you're going to look after them. And also being so close, every time they need the toilet, you know about it
mm.
before any accidents happen, which really helps with the toilet training as well. So would you go through the same method again? Would you spend a bit of time on the sofa for the next puppy that you get?
100%. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that's definitely helped us. And another thing we did is we didn't ever really let her fall asleep on us. Like we kind of would sit on the floor and play with her, but like when she was tired, I would put her into her crate a little bit, or I'd put her into her bed and just stroke her. And I think even though that it's the best having a puppy fall asleep with you, I think that actually just helped her just get used to sleeping in her bed and feeling comfortable to do that. But yeah, if was to get another one, I'd definitely sleep on the sofa and
Yeah.
do
And
that.
and that bit about not letting them sleep on you is great advice. So if people are listening to this and they're going through this, if your puppy falls to sleep on you, that's absolutely okay. But just make sure they wake up in their bed or in their crate. So once they've nodded off, just lift them up, pop them back in their crate. So actually they wake up and they go, oh, I'm in my bed. It's a nice, safe place and everything's been okay. It will help condition them to that crate. There's been loads of good stuff that you've kind of spoken about, and you're smiling as every time you mention Bonnie's name, you've got a smile on your face. But it's not all good stuff because actually the realities of owning a dog are tough. So, what is the most frustrating part of having a Labrador in your life?
I think the most frustrating thing for us has been the loose lead walking and like being out and about. Um, you do just need like Bonnie's training has been hard work, but she's been so quick at learning and picked it up very quickly. But this side of things has definitely been like testing my patience. So like she's a bit of a yo-yo dog. So she'll come to heel nicely, I'll reward her, and then she'll be like straight in front. So then we have to stop. So you don't really get anywhere quickly. And at first I was a little bit like, oh, why aren't you getting this? But then I kind of was like, right, let's just chill with it. Let's just go with it. And also, when you're out and about, you'll all probably realize that if you've got a Labrador puppy, people just go a bit scatty. They're like, they are the cutest puppies in the world, in my opinion. And everybody wants to say hello and everybody goes all high pitched. So trying to keep her focused on me when everyone else is sort of like wants to say hello, I have found very, very challenging.
It doesn't come natural to us. When people want to come and say hello to this cute little puppy, you feel a bit rude, don't you? Kind of saying, back off, leave us alone. But it does help if you can be that person that just kind of ignores everyone and walks around them and tries your very best just to keep your dog away from them. Because if you let your dog go up to everyone and get all the fuss, they suddenly think that every person is just super friendly and lovely. And it can encourage things like jumping. So, again, we've spoken about this before. Me with my puppy, I'm the worst person in the world because I will not speak to a person when I'm walking my little puppy. I'm like, we're going around this way, and trying my best just not to make eye contact with anyone because I don't want anyone coming and putting their hands in my dog's face and getting them all riled up.
And I think
Um,
that was kind of one thing that I have learned so quickly was that everyone talks about socializing a puppy, and I always thought that's letting them say hello to everybody, but actually it's just almost letting them walk past everybody. And
yeah,
that's something that I was kind of really quick to learn, that I don't she does not have to say hello to everybody.
yeah. And a good way to think about socialization is we need to get away from this idea that socialization is just getting your dog to play with other dogs and play with people. We actually need to start thinking that what we want is to socialize our puppy to things for them to become really neutral around them. So they learn that dogs and people aren't really exciting, they aren't really scary. They're just like this thing that's there, and they give quite a neutral response too. So that's why avoiding some situations of getting in the melee can be quite useful. Um, Hindsight is a great thing, right? So we learn from our experiences, we have hindsight, we've done stuff, and we may do things differently in the future. So I want to ask you a question. You can be as critical as you like, or reflective as you like, but what would you say is a dog related, I'm going to use the word failure, and what do you think you've learned from it?
Yeah, so when I first moved out, so when I was 21, um, my boyfriend at the time, his mum bred some good golden doodles, and I absolutely fell in love with one. And James brought me her for Christmas. She was called Copper, and she was absolutely brilliant dog. Like she's still great now and everything. But I would say that I let her down, and I think that I failed her just because the timing turned out to be really, really bad for us to have a puppy and to have a dog. Um, I don't think I was ready, or I don't think I was mature enough to really have a dog personally. I expected a lot from her, and it sort of very quickly my mental health just went downhill. The situation was like we were living in a flat. I actually had a broken foot in a cast up to my knee, which was non-weight bearing. Um, so I everything was just I couldn't really do anything with her. Because like now with Bonnie, it's really easy to pick her up, take her outside, or do whatever I need to walk with her. But I couldn't even walk myself, so I couldn't carry her down a flight of stairs to do the toilet training, everything. But we ended up having to make the decision to rehome Copper, which broke me. Like I've never cried so much in my life, and but now she's gone to live with James's brother, and she has like the most amazing life, and everything's turned out the best. But I would say that that was probably one of the things that I feel like I failed with in relation to like dogs. However, looking at least sort of like reflectively, I do think that it's made me such a better dog owner now, because I learned so much from it, and I learned the things that I didn't want to happen again, and how to sort of like make those things not happen again. And yeah, it's it's tough to talk about because she did nothing wrong. It was me, and if I could go back, I would do things so differently for her.
Would you say that that was a case of kind of the expectation of what a puppy is and what they do and how, I'm going to say, easy to care for was just very different from the actual reality that you had?
Yeah, I think I was just kind of like, oh, I've moved out, I've got my lovely boyfriend, we've got a little flat, we want a dog. Um, and I just expected her to be well behaved, fully trained, fully potty trained, and like JD at home, basically, um, without kind of putting the work in. Um, which, yeah, was just not very fair of her. And even to the point where I'd started a new job, so I kind of left her on alone a little bit too much. And then she'd have an accident, and I'd get frustrated, and it was just, yeah, it was just not.
I guess it was just a very difficult lesson
Yeah,
to
for sure.
learn. But you mentioned that actually Copper is living a great life. She's gone
Oh
to
yeah, she's
somewhere
so
that is
happy.
more suited to her. So, what age was she when she moved on to her new forever home?
So we did actually have her for, I think she was 2 when she moved on. And yeah, she's so happy now, and she lives with a little Sprudel, and they're like best mates, and they go out. And yeah, it like I think everything happens for a reason, and she is so much happier now. And I almost feel a little bit proud that I did make that decision, because I think it would have been really easy, even though not probably not easy on me, but easy just to keep her, keep going. Both of us to been unhappy and it not to work. And yeah, I don't really know what it'd be like now, but actually sort of being honest with people around me that it was really hard, and then making that decision, it has worked out for the best.
Do you know, I think it's a brave decision to make because, as you've just kind of said, if you hadn't have made that decision, you would have potentially had Copper with you for 15 years. Copper would have been a bit unhappy. You might have been a bit unhappy, but actually, you've made the decision for all the right reasons. And she's gone off to live by the sounds of it, a wonderful life. And I know she lives fairly close, so you still have contact with her and you get to know all about her, right?
Yeah, they actually live, like, we're number 9 on the street, and they're number 28 now. So we see them all the time. I look after her, she comes and stays at ours, or I go around and walk her. So I definitely have, like, a good bit of contact. It's not like I've just cut all ties. And she's one she Adam and Jen look after her so well. So, I can't fault them. They've done amazing with her now.
And I guess the experience of having Copper in your life has helped with the relationship that you built with Bonnie because you've learnt lessons from it and you have probably done stuff different. Would you say it has been a, in a weird kind of way, a useful experience to help with that relationship with Bonnie?
Yeah, absolutely, because I'm just so much more understanding, and I'm kind of like, I almost just sort of had no expectations for Bonnie, whereas I had so many for Copper, which meant that I was always frustrated with her. Whereas with Bonnie, I'm sort of, right, let's see how you go with this. Let's work at our own pace. Let's do this together. Like, it's a partnership, as mad as that sounds, because it's a dog, but it's us together doing this together and making this work. Whereas before it was almost like I was a bit selfish. Like, I just wanted this dog because I wanted a dog. Um, and not sort of thinking what was the best for her. So I've definitely put things and made structure, and even little things like when Bonnie goes to stay with other people, or anything like that. Like, I'm so much more set with her routine on what I need them to do, or how that I want them to look after her, just purely because that's her best interest. And it's that consistency again, isn't it? Keeping
Yeah.
things consistent because that is in her best interest.
And I suppose low expectations and consistency are very good rules to have in the back of your head when you've got a puppy because you're not going to be too disappointed. So, based on your experience with JD, with Copper and Bonnie, if you could give a couple of bits of advice to a new Labrador owner, so someone sat at home listening to this with an 8-week-old puppy that's just finding it a bit of a challenge, what would you say to them?
I definitely, what we mentioned before, is not having those expectations and sort of going with the flow, but creating almost a routine. So you know where you want to go, and you know what they want to do, and have those sort of set rules for your household. But then when you're training, just sort of not expect that everything's going to go well first time. If it does, amazing, that's great, celebrate it. But if it doesn't, it's okay, we can try again. And they are going to get it wrong because they are a baby and they're just learning. So that's been super important for us. And also really taking those first few weeks just to build that bond and that trust, and helping them to know that you are going to be there if they need you in any situation. So really setting them up for success, and helping them never to be put in a situation where they could make the wrong decision. So like, if that, for example, you don't want them to eat some sort of food, don't leave it lying around where they can find it. Or we had a situation with the Hoover where I started hoovering. I could tell Bonnie was a little bit nervous. So my first reaction was to tell her to get to heel. So she was behind me, so she couldn't sort of get affected by the Hoover. Whereas when my partner did it, he didn't really think like that. And she started to get a little bit more anxious. So it's kind of telling them something you want them to do in a situation where they could make the wrong decision. Because you are the boss, really.
Yeah,
And they need your help.
that and that prevents failure but promotes success. And you end up with a puppy that kind of gets it because they understand the rules, and you're not going to put them in that situation where they're likely to mess it up. Like you say, they're still learning. They're babies, aren't they, at that age?
Yeah,
Brilliant.
absolutely.
There's some really key bits of advice there, really useful bits of information that you shared with us. So, people have listened about Bonnie now, but they want to go and see this little lady. They want to see how lovely she is. So, where can the listeners of this podcast find Bonnie? Where can they follow you on social media platforms?
So I do have an Instagram for Bonnie, and it's at Bonnie with an IE underscore the underscore lab 22.
Perfect. Go check her out on that Instagram profile. She is lovely. Give her a little like and a follow. Millie, thank you for sharing your experiences with us and being so honest. And I'm sure our listeners will have found your experiences pretty valuable and interesting. And a big thank you from me as well for being really committed to Bonnie's ongoing training. And I just urge you, keep it up, keep going, and you will have an absolutely cracking dog. Thanks for joining us. Find out more by checking out talesofsuccess.com or search at Tales Success on your social channels. Thanks for joining us. Find out more by checking out talesofsuccess.com or search at Tales Success on your social channels.